the movement among these three runs in both directions, clockwise and counterclockwise, ABC, ABC, and CBA, CBA. Theology shapes worship, which in turn shapes mission, which then shapes theology, and mission shapes worship, which in turn shapes theology, which then shapes mission. One may enter this circle at any point. What is important is not what comes first, but rather how any of the three, worship, theology, and mission, impacts and is impacted by the other two. This is why there must be both a clockwise movement and simultaneous counterclockwise movement. Such movements are not only simultaneous, but also never completed. In the present life, we shall never have the right and final theology with which to shape perfect worship and then solve all the difficult issues of the world. In a pandemic, for instance, part of mission is joining the world in pain and hope, in protest and submission. This then spills into worship, where we recover the prayer of the faithful, interceding for this world whose problems we cannot solve. Our reflection on this prayer leads us to rediscover some of the deeper meanings of the priesthood of all believers. Such reflection lets us see that part of the mission of the Church is to pray for the world, particularly for those who do not pray. And so the circle continues. Or one may take another example. When years ago I declared that worship was killing me, part of what I meant was that I found much worship shallow in theology and irrelevant in mission. As I have later observed the life of the Church and been part of it, I have learned that to boast of the rightness or the depth of my theology is to deny the greatness and the mystery of the God about whom and with whom I am supposed to be theologizing. I have also learned that to declare worship as irrelevant in mission is to forget that part of the mission of the Church is to pray for the world, to be a priestly people bringing this tortured world to the throne of the Most High. And I have also learned that to complain that any form of worship is killing me is to forget that death and new life are essential to Christian worship. If worship is killing me, this may be the continuation of what took place at my baptism, where I died and was raised again with Christ. Knowing myself as I do, I know that I need constant killing and raising into new life. This is what worship, all forms of worship, so-called traditional and so-called contemporary, so-called high and so-called low, in loud decibels and in quiet meditation, does for me, for the Church, and for the entire world over and over again, until at last in glory we shall know as we are known. Introduction. The Church has missionary power in direct proportion to its liturgical integrity. Stanley Hauerwas. When most Christians think of worship and liturgy, mission is not the first thing that comes to mind. We mostly agree that worship is central to who we are and that it is an essential aspect of what it means to be a believer. But while we may agree on the centrality of worship for the Christian life, we don't all agree on its role in connection with mission. One of the ways I have come to appreciate the connection between liturgy and mission is through the idea of spiritual breathing. Just as physical breathing is essential to the body, so the Christian life requires a spiritual breathing that involves worship and mission. Pope Francis reminds us breathing is made up of two stages: inhaling, the intake of air, and exhaling, the letting out of air. The spiritual life is fed, nourished by prayer, and is expressed outwardly through mission, inhaling and exhaling. When we inhale, by prayer, we receive the fresh air of the Holy Spirit. When exhaling this air, we announce Jesus Christ risen by the same Spirit. No one can live without breathing. It is the same for the Christian. Without praise and mission.